Social Security is a human right meant to protect the most vulnerable members of society through social inclusion and cohesion and poverty reduction. This video will look at 4 essential features that serve to guide nations in their obligations to respect, protect, and fulfill the right of their citizens to Social Security. Hello, good people. My name is Janice. I'm an attorney, educator, public speaker, and author of the companion book to this channel, Dignity, Human Rights in Daily Life, which is going to launch on Cyber Monday 2020. Thanks for stopping by. If you're new to this channel, welcome. After watching this video, I invite you to check out this playlist, and please consider subscribing. Article 22 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights states, everyone, as a member of society, has the right to Social Security and is entitled to realization through national effort and international cooperation and in accordance with the organization and resources of each state of the economic, social, and cultural rights indispensable for his dignity and the free development of his person. In other words, you have a right to Social Security so that you may live with dignity and to reach your personal potential. As for the resources of each state, that's contingent upon the income of the state. Developing countries don't have the same income of richer nations, commonly known as the Western world. When it comes to international cooperation, let's use the 2014 Ebola outbreak in West Africa as an example. President Barack Obama sent $54 billion to prevent, prepare for, and respond to the outbreak internationally. So this is an example of international cooperation. 3 things I want you to keep in mind. The definition of Social Security in this context under the Universal Declaration of Human Rights is a broad definition that goes beyond the scope of what we commonly in the United States think of as Social Security. Also, state refers to a country or nation, and his is gender neutral, meaning his and hers. Moving right along, I'm going to use the United States as an example because it's the nation that I know the best. But as I explain this, think of how Social Security is dispensed in your particular country. So now there are 4 essential features of Social Security that's required of each nation regardless of income. They are availability, social risks and contingencies, adequacy, and accessibility. Let's start with availability. And I'm going to use the common phrase of Social Security as an example, meaning the pension part of Social Security in the United States that people get when they retire. That needs to be available for generations according to the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. The availability should be over generations. Now, when Social Security was established in the United States, the eligible age was 65. That was the universal age. The thing is, most people didn't live to see 65, and if they did, they didn't live much past it. So there was no concern or issue with the continuity over generations. Another aspect of continuity over generations is when a head of household who is the breadwinner passes away, there is Social Security available to surviving spouses and children, which is another example of transgenerational disbursement of Social Security. When it comes to social risks and contingencies, countries recognize that there are certain risks that people will face that would impact their ability to be included in mainstream society due to the lack of funds. Those are old age and survivors and orphans that I already discussed. Then there's the risk of disability. Social Security based on disability is contingent upon being unable to work. So that's the criteria. The contingency is the criteria upon which one will receive Social Security benefits based on various social risks. Another risk is unemployment. We know that as unemployment insurance. Here, one loses one's job without being at fault, and that's the criteria for receiving those funds. Now, you can take the stimulus packages, well, there's only one, but in the context of the corona pandemic, a lot of people lost their jobs, and Congress issued a stimulus package, and that's a form of Social Security in the broad sense of the definition under the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, because people were unable to work through no fault of their own. So that's an example of how this definition is broad. Another risk is the risk of employment injury, what we know as workers' compensation. The contingent is that the person is injured in the course of doing their job. The next one is housing. That criteria to be eligible is based on income. So if someone is going to get public housing, access to public housing, it has to do with their level of income. We know it as Section 8, or public housing that is administered by a locality but is funded through the federal government. Family and child support, like aid to families with dependent children, is another income criteria that determines eligibility, as does nutrition. That's another income criteria, eligibility. So those are the social risks and the contingencies. The next essential feature is adequacy. When it comes to family protections and assistance, there's a certain standard of living that has to be met and access to healthcare like Medicaid. The adequacy also goes to the cost of living increases. Increase will be based on the consumer price index, which goes to inflation. The fourth and final essential feature is accessibility. And there are 5 key elements to this particular feature: the coverage, eligibility, affordability, participation in information, and physical access. So the physical access goes to the realization of receiving the benefit. Coverage goes to how much you receive. Eligibility, I talked about the criteria that one must meet in order to be entitled to Social Security. The affordability goes to how much the state can afford to pay. Participation in information, a mechanism that the government is required to institute so that people are aware of their right and can receive it, as well as physical access, meaning the actual receipt of the benefit. So the purpose overall is to make sure that those who are at risk of falling into poverty can have a minimal standard of living that will allow them to maintain inclusion in society as a whole and take part in the economic, cultural, and social aspects of society.
So, if you learned anything new in this video, write hashtag Team Dignity in the comments, like, share, subscribe if you haven't already, and until next time, be well and remember to live your life with dignity. Bye-bye.